without further ado, we're going to talk about how to manage and develop your website. Is this showing all right, Rachel? Yeah. Okay. So we're finding that, I mean, the recent events in Ukraine will put more pressure on websites because the Russians are reportedly doing more cyber attacks. We've not yet seen it on the website screens, the security settings we have on the websites. We monitor these regularly, and we've not seen anything more from Russia. Seems to be on Monday. It was more about Singapore, so I don't quite know what that was about. But clearly, there's more things you now need to do in order to protect your business, because Russia could take the war online, which wouldn't be good. But there are things you can do to protect yourself. So I'm going to run through. I think most of you know me by now, so we won't spend too much time on that. So basically, I've been working with companies for 20 years, worked with over 500, working with technology since 1984. And Charlie joined me 6 years ago to form the agency. And now we're a one-stop shop with a growing team of people, associates who we can draw on. So that we can't do it, we know somebody who can. So a few housekeeping rules: run the speaker view during the presentation, gallery view during interactive sessions. Use mute when not talking. We can just have a chat today. There's not too many of us in the room. Please ask questions through chat if there's anything you want to raise during the presentation, and I'll build that into the presentation. Keep your video on if you can. Switch it off, obviously, if you don't want to be recorded or be seen on live stream. And if you want to put your contact details into chat, as Rachel from Puddalicious has done, then that's great as well. And Rachel from Cub has done the same. So why do we do these workshops? You know, there's quite a lot of preparation. You know, live streaming isn't trivial. Well, it's to help you guys compete in the digital world, build on your knowledge, and solve digital marketing problems. And after Easter, we'll be we'll probably start promoting it before Easter. It launches tomorrow on Friday. A new platform called NetHub sits between LinkedIn and a CRM, and it will enable networkers to find out who the influencers are and who brings work and who they need to focus on. We're part of that, and we'll be telling you more in a few weeks' time. So what's Vision to Success? Well, we've got the free Wednesday workshops between 11 and 12. They'll move to bi-weekly after Easter. We've then got the book, 60,000 words on digital marketing management, how to make it happen. We have got a few online courses, and then we're developing an app which is currently in beta test. So if you're interested in capturing your digital marketing strategy, then please drop me a line. We obviously do one-to-one coaching. We do a complete review of your digital marketing, give you, find all the things basically you're going to see today, actually. And then we also do larger strategy development, marketing strategy development and implementation planning, including financial forecasting. This is the book. It's available on Amazon, Drive Sales with Digital Marketing. It's got 3 chapters on the overall sort of marketing strategy process, and then 7 chapters on application in key areas like websites, keywords, content, social media, email, and so on. Okay, and we also have a WhatsApp group. So if you want to be kept up to date with what's happening, please send your mobile to Rachel and she'll add you to the WhatsApp. Okay, how to manage and develop your website. So for the next 30 minutes, we're going to do a deep dive into some of the things you should be thinking about. Hopefully you'll understand some of the cool key tools that you can use to measure your website. Now, we focus on free tools rather than the paid for tools, because they can get quite expensive, but obviously you can get more information and so forth through the paid for tools. Well, there's a lot of free tools out there provided that you can do a lot of this stuff yourself, and also to look at what any errors you might find in the website. So why is it so important? Well, for most established businesses, your website is your most valuable digital asset. Things like if you've got a shop on Amazon, you may be doing £1 million, but they will take it off. They will stop it if you've not filled in some random piece of information. You know, unless and until you've got any disputes sorted out, they will not let you go live. LinkedIn, you can get kicked off LinkedIn, and so on. Facebook can shut you down. So the website is the only thing that you actually can control. It's a place for your brand, for you to make an environment that's fully supports your brand and promotes it. With a thing called Webchat, which is the thing that sits on the right-hand side, which you can use to. So I'll just make an adjustment. You can have conversations. You can, if you want to reduce how much actual face-to-face customer service you do with clients, you know, so rather than them ringing you up, you sort of hide the telephone number and you get all the traffic to go through web support. This actually proves quite effective. If you can build in frequently asked questions, then you can actually improve your service because they can get answers to their questions any time of day. And that leads then on to customer support, so you can create ticketing systems and so forth to make sure that everybody's query is answered correctly, and then hopefully you'll get conversion. You know, you can design your web pages so that they will convert inquiries into sales, or at least convert visitors into inquiries, depending on what you're trying to do. Okay, some of the sort of key issues we come across when working with websites with business owners is sometimes they've let the developer do everything and they've actually lost control of their own domain, and depending on how so relationships aren't forever, unfortunately, in business, and if that relationship falls apart and you're not the domain owner, the person who developed the site's domain owner, you can have it can be really tricky to get that back. If you've got control over your domain control panel, then we can do pretty much everything else to rescue your website and domains. It's good to have access to your hosting control panel, but that may not always be the case, depending on your relationship with the developer. One thing that seems to be not taken very seriously is backups. You know, we always recommend hosting, which does automatic backups. So no matter what happens, if you get attacked or whatever, we can have that website up within, especially on things like SiteGround, we can have it up in 3 minutes. But that only relies on the fact that the site's being backed up regularly. You've got to think about your WordPress site is a piece of software, and within it there are elements of software called plugins, and it's important that the whole thing is updated, not redesigned or anything like that, but the actual software itself is at the latest version. We still come across sites that have got the insecure or there's no padlock, and Chrome will not let your users go to those websites if it's not got the little padlock working. So you know, that's one of the other things that we need to do. Again, with with Ukraine and Russia and so forth, it's important to have a firewall, and these can be built into the website free of charge. Another important thing for getting found is speed. How quick is your website? Have you got quite heavy videos or pictures on there that have not been optimized, which slow it down? We're going to look at some of these tools in a little while. Your site might look fine, but it might actually be full of errors if from Google's perspective. And there are things you can do to do that, and there's sort of low-cost tools for doing that. And then there's, you want to get found. That could be pretty tricky. More and more, there's about 50% of most traffic through the website, certainly we deal with, 50% comes from mobile. And so it's important that the website doesn't, whether it's a tablet, a mobile, or a big desktop, it works well on all of those. And that comes to down to how the site's designed. And then we've got the actual user experience. Does a user, when they land on the site, have a great experience? Can they get to what they want? Do you guide them through their journey to help them understand it? In previous workshop, we talked about know, like, trust. Well, does your website do that? Does it provide information at the awareness stage? Does it have things that allow them to get engaged, like a web chat and so forth? And so therefore, you're able to convert into using the calls to action. So if you've got really strong calls to action on the site, using for different modes, like contact forms, email addresses, web chat, telephone numbers, dialogue boxes, all these sorts of things to, and more sort of Calendly type, booking, book a meeting in the type technology, so that people can get answers to problems. So on one website, they've got links for service requests, sales inquiries, and pre-technical information, and it takes users off in different ways. So you can make the website do a lot more work for you. It can be your customer services. So some key tools. We're fast hosts for domain control. So all our domains are registered in here. Typically, this is what the domain control panel will look like. If you can see words like name servers and advanced DNS, you don't need to know what they are, but if you can see them, and you can see when your renewal date is, if it's on auto renew, and so forth, and contact information. If you can see that in your control panel, which most of them you should be able to do if you've got access, then this is good. So if you don't know whether you've got access, try and find. There'll be an invoice from, it could be name servers, it could be things like FastHost, 123reg, possibly GoDaddy, things like that. If you've got access and you can see this information, you've got control of your domain. This is something you might not see because web developers sometimes take care of this for you, and that's fine. But you're looking for things like, can you see the security? Can you see anything to do with WordPress, domain, and so forth? They can be very similar, these panels, but this is what you use to set up the little padlocks on the side to tell where your email has to go and things like that. So if you've got access to this, that's great. If you're not, make sure that you understand who has got access. I'm showing the SiteGrounds website backup and restore because I love this. If a site has a problem, and occasionally they do, things happen, and which will break a site. I just click on the actions button, click on restore, and the thing's in business. It takes about 3 minutes, with depending on the size of the site, obviously. But we can take a completely broken site and put it back up again in 3 to 5 minutes. This is probably slightly contentious with some developers. We just won a hosting contract for 3 websites from a client because we were happy to give him full access to the administrator setup, and this is an administrator panel. You've got administrator rights if you can see the plugins directory. These are the little bits of software I mentioned earlier. Don't need to be an expert on these things. But when you log into your this is a WordPress background. There are other types of website, a lot less popular. This is the most popular. But if you can see things like that, if you can see users, you know you've got full access to your website. And you know, I would recommend having that site. But there are some developers who disagree with me. But we've just won some work because we've allowed the client to have access to this stuff. We can restore it within minutes. So if they completely hack it up, it's not a problem. We can sort it out. So and it gives you a lot more feeling of control. We're a big fan of trying to help people learn how to use WordPress to do the simple stuff, because especially we use a tool called Elementor, which means that for the most part they can change pretty much everything. Down here, again, if you have admin access, you can actually see the site health, and it will tell you, where things are up to. So if somebody else is managing it for you, you don't have to go tinkering around in these things. You just run this and go, oh, right, okay, there's a few things that need to be done. And then there's a conversation to be had with the developer, and find out what service level agreements they're happy to work to, so that, if, say, in week 1 of the month, they will make sure everything's up to date. It does mean by week 3 or 4, it'll be slightly out of date, but it means with every month, you should be always up to date with what needs to be done. This is the plugins directory. We do have some clients who like to do their own updates, which is fine, again, because we've got the backup. If you haven't got automated backup, then you can't really do this. But as you can see, this is a typical plugins, and here it's saying this needs updating. We do auto updates for stable plugins, so that sites are more up to date. But there is a risk that one of these things might update and fail. But these days, we stick to a set of plugins that we use, pieces of software to do things. So, for example, this is this design software we use, so it's a bit like paint by numbers. But there are risks to that. This is the one that you do need to speak to your developers about. We use Wordfence, big fan of Wordfence. There is a thing called Security, SUCURI, which is also a very good security. And basically, this is free. There's no cost, but other than the developer putting it in, making sure it's set up right. But we get a report from the system every week for all the websites we do, and the number of attacks is going up, not by a huge amount, but it is going up. So it's important to have a chat with your developer and say, right, okay, how are we keeping my website secure? How do I know that we're getting people who are, for example, we regularly see, we tell Wordfence now that quite a lot of websites used to have the user admin. We don't use that anymore. We create a new user with a different format for different websites. So even though it's developed by us, they won't be able to guess what we call the admin. So that's an important thing, to make sure that you don't create standard users. Don't also create a user which is the domain name, which also seems to get attacked as well. gtmetrics.com, brilliant piece of software. It's free. They keep adapting it, so this probably screen's slightly out of date. If you can get AOB on your website speed or its rating with the GTmetrix, that's a great job. COD, if it's C, then there's some work to be done. If it's DRE, there's definitely DE or F. There's definitely a conversation to be had with your developer. Now, one of the challenges we face is that more and more people want video on their front page, and trying to optimize videos so that they don't slow down the site whilst it loads is proving particularly challenging, because when it runs on a big screen, you actually want it to have quite a high quality. And our videographer spends quite a bit of time playing with the video formats in order to get that just right. So it doesn't take up, it's not too big, but it's got the right resolution. And here's an example. Sort of, you can see this one's a C, and you can see it's high here. And this is before they started optimizing their images. So they then looked at each of the images and realized that they could make them smaller. They could what's called compress them. There are tools out on the web, such as Tiny PNG, which will allow you to do that. And this is something you can do yourself. It's not, it's not. You can, reduce. There are packages within systems as well for doing that. But the better is to put the right size images up in the first place. If you're loading these images yourself, then it's worth, just having a chat with your developer to say, right, okay, what images should I be putting up? And they will help you with the tools. There's no reason then, once you know that, for you not to do it yourself. This is usually the biggest problem with sites. People just upload, you just think of your smartphone. You take a photograph of your smartphone, it's about 4 or 5 meg. Ideally, that needs to be really sort of scrunched down so it fits on the site. And the nice thing about GTmetrix, it tells you where the culprits are. So you can go straight in and fix those yourself. There are a few things that you can't do that you need a developer to do. This is in the realms, this some of the stuff you can't fix, but if you run, there's a thing called Ubersuggest. We've introduced it a few times now. And if you do this on your website, it'll give you an audit of where the critical errors are and so forth. You'll struggle to get rid of all of them, by the way. It used to be possible to get to 0, but that's now a long lost hope. You can get as much of the screen as possible, because one of the issues is that so some of the issues it will come up with is you've not got enough content on the page. Well, if that page is not really designed to have much content, there's not a lot you can do about it. Google Analytics is a very useful tool. It's free, and you can see the traffic. So Google Analytics gives you this as free. There is a little bit of setting up to do. Probably your developer will help you here, but you can. This tells you what's happening actually on your website. Whether you've got paid adverts coming there, paid traffic coming there, from traffic from paid adverts, whether it's from social media like LinkedIn and so forth, whether it's being found. Somebody's typed in. Generally, if you're getting traffic from people who are finding you, it's probably cut from your brand name as opposed to anything else. That's generally what happens before the site is optimized for search engines, which we talked about last week. But it gives you a good idea. So here you can see year on year we've made an improvement to the traffic to our own site. This is Google Search Console. So Google Search Console is all the traffic that Google is sending to you. It's not what's happening on your website, it's the traffic that's coming into you. And this is really useful because this is where you learn how people are finding your websites. It tells you the keywords that people have searched to find you and so forth. And you can see on this chart here, Charlie put a post up called Illusory Truth Behind Social Media. And that article regularly gets traffic. I put up, it's been up there for years now, and I keep tinkering with it. Challenges faced by SMEs. And, Google ranks that very highly. You get quite a lot of traffic from it. And so you can see how people are finding you. So again, the conversation about there is a little bit of technical work to get this to work. And this is where you or somebody needs access to your domain hosting panel we talked about earlier on. Okay, so thinking sort of a few of the considerations about your website. Is it responsive? Does it work well on any device? It's really important these days because people might be sitting scrolling on the smartphone, or they may be doing it from a desktop. And it's 50-50 whether they're doing which. We talked about the SSL. Do you have that padlock enabled? And we'll talk about that in a bit more. Can visitors get to what they want? Do you guide them through their customer journey? More and more when we're designing home pages, because people can scroll, looking at guiding them through that customer journey, through that home page. You might see a few websites where Rachel's asked a good question with the web chat. We're going to do that in the next slide. So I'm going to pick up that question in the next slide. And just finishing off this slide, on the lead generation, what can you offer that's of value? We're building an app, which I mentioned earlier, that will be freely available. That become part of the website. We've put on there we put up lots of content onto Vision to Success. So there's plenty of materials, plenty of things for people to look at and to get answers to, because websites are there to answer questions, problems that people have. So if your website makes it really easy for them to get answers to those questions, one technique would be to write down all the key questions you think your customers are going to ask, and then look at your website or get somebody else to look at your website and say, right, okay, can they get answers to those questions? If they can't, then that needs to be looked at. And is everybody clear what the next call to action is? Do you make it clear what you want the visitor to do in order to progress their inquiry? So coming on to the question that Rachel asked, as a one-person business, would you recommend a limited web chat within certain hours, etc.? Okay, so there's a thing called live chat, there's a thing called web chat. So live chat is where you're actually having a conversation with somebody. For most businesses, they limit themselves to that web chat, which is where you leave a message, you say, hi, I need some help. And the bot, the piece of software, will say, yeah, can you have your email? And somebody will get in touch with you. So what it means is you can run 24/7. You may put in, so up here, we go, how can we help you? Sometimes on intercom in the early days, it puts down responds within so many minutes, so many hours, or whatever, or maybe next day. I personally would have it running all the time. And then what we're doing for some clients where we really want to minimize contact, we don't want people sending in emails and questions for easy stuff. So you can build those answers actually already in. So, you could, on the Puddalicious stuff for Rachel, you could say, do you supply a vegan version, or do you supply a gluten-free version, dairy-free versions, things like that. And so so they can get an answer to that, because the system will go no or yes, or you can point them to somewhere else on your website. Does that answer your question, Rachel? Yeah. Cool.
Yes, that was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're using a range of ones actually. There's Intercom. We use Active Campaign, which is part of my email system. We're using Conversations, which is a beta from Sendinblue. There's Tidio, which we don't use, but there is a completely free version. Some people use Zendesk. their ticketing system. HubSpot now has I think it's a free web chat. So if you wanted to hook your CRM system into your website, then that's also great. One of the things about all these things is these separate systems, the data stays separate from your CRM. What I'd be nervous of with the HubSpot one is if that data then drops straight into your CRM and you end up with a lot of sort of inquiries that don't go anywhere and just diluting all the good data. So there are arguments for keeping the two separate, but I think some of this is trial and error with the customers. In terms of our web chat, we don't get a huge amount, but I think you need quite a lot of traffic before that becomes a problem. But certainly, it's nice. It does make life easier for customers to talk to you and to get answers to those simple questions. So, bringing it together, make sure you have access to your website hosting, access to your website, including, I believe, including the plugins. Make sure that you do have analytics and search console set up, because there's a phrase, what gets measured gets done. Well, if you're not measuring what's going through your website, how do you know what you've got to improve and so forth? There are other things you can do above that, and we've just put a proposal in to a client where they've sort of done everything that's intuitive, and we now really need to be looking at the sort of how people behave on the website, because you can actually track behavior, you can see what they're clicking on, you can sort of see their journey through the website and so forth, and is the traffic doing what you hope it to do? Are you getting too much fallout? Does your website have the HTTPS : // It needs to have that. Really important these days, especially with so much cyber activity going on, is it backed up automatically? How quickly can you get your website back up again? And how easy it is to use the website, and how do you prompt your visitors to call to action? So we're going to start the presentation now. I'm going to go around the room, sort of seeing what you've learned, what any questions and so forth. So start the presentation. Okay, so going around the room, let's get rid of the spotlight off me. So Rachel, what have you taken away from today?
It's really good timing for me because I'm having my website. I've had a holding page for 2 years and I'm finally on track to getting it sorted. So I've had a list in the back of my notebook of things that I've been adding in that I want, but that's been more about the content and things like that. So this has been great. So I've put some things on, like it's not secure at the moment, but that's because it's just a holding page. So we need to get it. I need to get it secure. Need to make sure it's got that HTTPS, the automatic backup, and about the web chat with like the automatic responses. So that's really, really useful. And that's it, like you sort of said about it's the free from stuff that people do ask about. So if we can build in some automatic responses to that, that'd be great. I know it's the same guy. It's a local chap, and I made his wedding cake, and I do children's birthday cakes, and in payment he does like design work for me in my website. And I know on my last page I had access to the control panel and everything else, so I'll make sure. I'm assuming I'll get the same again, and if I don't, I'll just say, so that's handy just as a prompt really, because I would probably have forgotten about that.
Before you part with any money, make sure that is true, because some developers, and I say I'm not taking sides, my personal view, you should have access, but please discuss that with your developer before you part with any money, because some developers do have quite strong views on this.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in the fact that I've never paid him a penny for any of it, except for
okay.
So yeah, we've got quite a good arrangement, I think, going on. So, but yeah, definitely. I think with the things though now with backup and the security stuff, I know that I think websites can be more expensive than they used to be. So I appreciate that. I might actually have to start paying at some point. But yeah.
Well, fortunately, I don't know what platform it's going to use, but Wordfence is free, and the free version is excellent.
Yeah, I've written that down because it is going to be a WordPress site. So.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, so I've written that Wordfence, I've written that down, so that's great. Thank you.
Brilliant. Good stuff. Okay. Yeah, it was interesting. I look after the Canoe Club's website, and because it's a canoe club, it's on the cheapest domain. I think it's actually called Namecheap. There's the hosting. It has nothing, but I have convinced the club it does. So the backups are the automated backups are an extra. They're not as good as the SiteGround by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, we paid a few more quid. It wasn't too much actually, just to make sure they back it up every week.
Right.
And for slow moving sites, that's actually fine. Week daily is actually if you've got a reasonably fast moving site, but weekly is great, but as long as it's automated, so you never have to remember to do it.
Yeah.
We had one client that was charged £60 every time the client did a web company did a backup.
Crikey, you're joking.
No. So this is why I'm a bit passionate about it, to be honest. Cool. Okay. Anything else?
No, that's good for me. Thank you. Really helpful.
Cool. Gemma?
Yeah, great. Really helpful today. I mean, I think I'm reassured that on security and control, I think, I'm not worried because all the things you said, have you got this? Have you got access? We've got all of that. So that's good. So where I'm at is trying to improve what we're doing. So we use live chat, and I think we could make better use of frequently asked questions and that kind of thing to just make that a bit more customer responsive on some of the stuff when we're not actually doing it live, but have got it on a, out of hours kind of thing. I think we make wheelchair wheels with suspension in them, and they're handmade, and it's an expensive product. What I'm trying to wrestle with in my mind is we mainly sell B2B and not through the website, but how can we increase our UK website sales? Should we try and get some cheaper products on our website that causes more engagement, that people have a kind of, a takeaway item, as it were, that they can actually buy? Because it's the calls to action that I'm thinking. You've got a certain number of people who want to buy an expensive product, and that's great. But is there anything else we could be doing that would generally increase our traffic and make us more attractive, as well as all the stuff that I took away from last week, which is all to do with content, because we don't ever change our content on our website ever, really. So obviously I've got a long list to do on that as well. And I think we need to do a refresh on the traffic and measurement, because our developer does an automatic report for us each week, but we pay them less now than we used to. Originally, they did a big sort of thing about looking at, where it worked and where it didn't work, but that's about 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago now. And I just wonder whether we ought to pay them to do a bit more, to do a real sort of, actually, is this still right? Where are the customer journeys going through? Where are they clicking and where not? Might be worth spending a bit of money on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Certainly before because putting cheaper products on could have implications in terms of the business model. Having to pack things up, ship it out.
Yeah, I wonder if it's worth it. I don't know. You see, that's just a thought in my mind. So it's interesting to know what you think on that.
I mean, Matt's an expert. He knows everything that I've just talked about, plus a million times more. Matt, what would you say to Jem?
Hi everyone. On which piece? On the uploading the products, or the getting the reports?
Because you help companies develop e-commerce sites, which is potentially where we're going with this. And is it worth just painting a picture of sort of all the work that needs to be done in order to do that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's worth going back looking at the numbers, the data, the analytics. What's happening right now? Because I get the impression if all that's happening is you're being sent an automated weekly report, it's probably the last thing that you ever look at, and probably you give it no attention whatsoever. It arrives at 2 o'clock on a Friday, and you think, well, that's a nice PDF with some graphs in there, lovely, but it's not telling you anything, is it? That's the reality.
No, exactly.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, you know the answer to your. Once a month, right? So you know the answer to the question. It makes sense to go back and revisit, re-establish baseline, you know, do a deep dive and understand what's happening right now. Because in the last 2 or 3 years, the market will have shifted as well. So what you thought was happening out there, the competitors you thought existed, where you sit in your landscape will have all changed. So yeah, absolutely go back and do that before you do anything in terms of updating products or content on a website, I would suggest.
And what do you think? You know, I kind of think, you know, as a consumer myself, I get really seduced personally by, you know, I've got kind of a couple of accounts with kind of, because I'm a gardener, I like gardening, you know, it's just a hobby. So I get really seduced by free offers or, you know, discounts on seeds, bulbs, all that kind of thing. And I kind of go, oh, yes, I've forgotten about them. And then I find myself spending 60 quid. We, in our kind of market, because people only buy expensive wheelchair wheels every 5 years, maybe, you know, how do you keep that engagement with people and reach, you know, and do that? That's what I was thinking. You know, it used to be that we used to tell the story on being an interesting startup company manufacturing in the UK. We did Kickstarter, all of that stuff. We don't really do that now. And I'm just sort of thinking, does it matter? You know, that's why I was thinking, is there some way of being able to do a few more sort of things that people might want in between times? But like you say, that would be a lot of work and not that much margin perhaps, but I don't know. That's what I'm just toying with.
So you know, Matt, you know, I think it's, you know, good to do what Matt suggested and take a step back. Running an e-commerce business, you know, selling smaller items and so forth, things that are not allied to your main products and so forth, it's generally going to cause you a problem.
Okay.
You know, my view, but it does need reviewing. If you can find, is it just the wheels you do? Do you do anything else?
No, nothing else at all. Well, push rims, so the hand rims that you and those we sell not just on our wheels, but compatible with other wheels as well. So that might be, but you know, generally we're B2B, but of course the big margins are on the retail sales.
Yeah, because you're not giving your margins away to. Yeah, it's an interesting one. That, I mean, I don't know whether you want 30 minutes with me, you know, on a quick Zoom call, just to, because it needs a bit more of a deep dive, possibly. Cool. Okay, we'll get that. We'll send you my calendar link. You can have a look there.
Great, thanks a lot.
Yeah, Matt, is there anything you want to add to today's this, you know, chat? Anything, you know, you think we've missed out that you would add?
No, I think excellent content, Peter, really useful. I mean, you know, the danger of a topic like this, it can go off in any number of directions, can't it? So you've done a nice job of summarising. Just one point is you mentioned about website speed, and I think you showed a screenshot from GT metrics. So loading speed is really, really critical for any website. You know, you're on your mobile, you're perhaps not on the fastest connection. Customers get sick and hacked off of websites that are sluggish and don't load properly. So, you know, apart from not uploading pictures from your mobile that are 5 megabytes each, you know, it's understanding what else can be done to keep the website fast and snappy and keeping on top of that. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you. Anybody, Soyub, Azara and Mike, would you like to, got any questions or actions you're going to take away from today?
Not for me, no. Interested in listening. Mine's really just like a corporate brochure. It's not an active site. I have done blogs in the past or had a company doing updates, but because my business is regulated by the FCA, everything has to go through our compliance team. So it just puts me off, to be honest. I'm open to the thought of a website generating business, but it's never happened. It's more of a, like, you know, it's there like I say, corporate brochure, people to go and check out what we do. I'm interested in what the point you made, which is not a thought I've had, which is about anticipating common questions and, you know, having those as the upfront answers sort of thing to start a journey. That's an interesting concept. Yeah.
So what we've done with one client, because there's not, it's a high growth startup. It's got funding, but you know, the cash, whether it's funded or not, is still tight. So what we've done is actually put the FAQs. You can do what's called a little accordion. So when you click on a plus, it then tells you a bit more. Your developer will know that. What we've done is we've put a whole bunch of sort of questions that the frequently asked questions actually on the appropriate pages before we build them into into the we're probably going to use Intercom. Intercom have got a startup package for high growth startups, and it's very cheap. So it allows you to get into the higher quality systems without the expense. But what you could do on yours, is just put those on the site. And if you use what's called an accordion, you can actually cramp up quite a lot of frequently asked questions, which should be all right with the FCA. We have worked with FCA compliant businesses, and I know what a nightmare that is.
Yeah.
What you need to do, though, because you are on FCA registered compliant businesses, regulated businesses, is make sure that you have got proper security. There'd be nothing worse for your business, you know, in terms of reputation management, if that site gets hacked and you're not aware of it for a few days. As I say, we are seeing a lot more attacks.
Has got security on. It certainly did. I need to stay abreast of that, maybe. Yeah. And then a few years ago, I remember picking up on there was logic about having creating a guide. You know, so as you know, I specialise in private healthcare employee benefits and that. So maybe, you know, a bike guide for private healthcare, that type of thing, and then promote that. Is that still what people do? Is that still good thinking? Or
I mean, you need to make the site as interactive as possible, in my view. Anything, I think people do it less. People are not printing things out anymore, but they are reading things. If you are able to, then, you know, think about maybe recording a video. You know, we're into the YouTube generation now, probably one of the reasons why we put a slide deck up and why we put the video up, why we put the transcript up, is that you know, we cater for all different generations. Somebody, you know, an older person might just read it because we can skim read faster than we can watch a video, but other people will probably have us on in the background. You know, whilst they do something else, they'll multitask. I certainly think, you know, given it's tricky with your business, but anything you can do that you can put on the website that means that, I mean, the thing about video is that it increases your time on the site. So more chance of them doing things. Google goes, oh, they're spending time on the site. So again, that's good from Google's point of view. And you know, if you're going to write a guide, though, don't make it War and Peace.
It's interesting what you say, because obviously I haven't got the patience for a film nowadays, because you take on information in a different way. But I used to really like videos, but now when they're on, it's like skip through, get to the point, come on.
Yeah. And if you just got to sort of think of what would be useful to, you know, I don't know whether this is the sort of thing that you use, but people love case studies. And again, we've got to be careful of the FCA, but could you do podcasts with specialists, or could you do, where you see we're doing more and more websites now where there's an area for podcasts and linking through to those sorts of things.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So does that answer everybody's questions? Everybody like to make a comment? Any thoughts? No, you're all good. Okay, so next week we have social media. We've got quite a few booked in for that. We did have a slight glitch in our systems this week, in that our star Rachel was, where did you go? Was it Switzerland? Yeah.
Yeah, I went to Zurich.
Zurich. How was Zurich?
Lovely. It's really good weather, I think. It was cold, but it was sunny, which makes everything just look
Brilliant.
a lot brighter.
So our star lead generator wasn't here. So numbers are a bit down this week, but we expect to be back up to normal numbers next week. And certainly the social media seems to have attracted a lot more people. So great to see you all again, and look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.